Welcome back to American Arms Channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Drake. We're back here at the reloading bench, and because somebody complained, I let it get totally trashed because that brings out the adventure in hand loading, right? Not really. I just have been very lazy and been stacking stuff on it. And instead of taking the time to clean it up today, I'm just going to throw together a few loads because I need to replenish some of the rounds that I've fired. And what are we loading today? Well, by the title of the video, you know we're playing again with the Hornady 300 PRC. And this load in particular is for my Bergara B-14 HMR. It has a 26-inch barrel, and other than that, it's pretty much stock. I put a muzzle brake on it, put a scope mount on it, put a decent optic on it, and with this particular load in my rifle, if I do my job, I'm able to shoot about 0.350 inch groups averaged. I've gotten as tight as 0.25 inch range, and it's all pretty much under a ½ inch. So this is a very good load for it, but it is lighter for the bore diameter, but it still outperforms 300 Win Mag by a little bit if you really want to crunch the numbers. But what this is a 200 grain ELD-X load, and that has a very decent BC on it, and I'm getting it downrange at about 3,050 to 3,085 feet per second, depending upon ambient conditions and etc. So let's take a look at the components and how I'm throwing this together, and then we're going to head out onto the range to see how my second focal plane scope changes with different magnifications and where I want to settle on my 100-yard zero for deer season, which is rapidly approaching at the time of this video. So let's take a look at what we've got. Let's throw a couple cartridges together, and then let's get on to shooting. All right, so let's take a look at our loads. Now here is an assembled cartridge, very pretty, right? Well, if we take a look at the 200 grain ELD-X versus the 212 grain right next to it, we notice that there's not that much of a difference. That 212 is slightly longer, and we can also see how that ogive is a little bit different. So that 212 does have a higher BC. It does have a slightly higher SD, but factory has it going down range to about 2875, whereas my 200 grainer here, one, shoots better than this out of my particular rifle, but also is getting down range faster, is slightly flatter shooting at shorter ranges, so basically 300, 350 and less, and carries a buttload of energy, which is not, a worry with either round, but it is designed for the 300 Win Mag, and it's performing excellent out of the 300 PRC as far as shooting goes, so we'll see how it does on game, and the assumption is it's going to do what it's supposed to. So we'll see what happens there. We're using Hornady brass. This is all factory brass. The batch that I am using is pretty much all of them are between their 6th and 10th loading at this point. Some of them might be approaching their dozenth loading, but they're doing very well. I've not had case hardening issues from work hardening or anything like that. There's been no cracking. I have trimmed the necks just once, because they were growing slightly, but they're doing really well, and we are utilizing a Hornady custom grade die set. If I can pick it up, here it is, just your standard. So a lot of Hornady going on right now, but seeing how I live close to Grand Island, Nebraska, there's a lot of Hornady supplies around because that's where they manufacture most of their stuff. So we're doing that. For a primer, we have CCI Magnum number 250s, so nothing special there. Now our special sauce is going to be Ram Shot LRT. We can see that I paid $35 for that. I've seen this LRT for pretty good prices, and my rifle seems to like it quite a bit. It's a very nice powder. We can see it right there. Now let's come over to our notes here. And I've got a bunch of notes here, but particularly we're worried about this 200 grain load. So I am stating that about 3.595 inches overall length, tip to butt on that cartridge, 200 grain ELD-X, 87.5, I had 7, but 87.5 grains of LRT. We got that number 250. Now that was 3,100 foot per second. That was kind of a guess. That is probably at the muzzle, 3 feet from the muzzle. Depending upon ambient conditions, etc. I'm pretty much averaging 3085, but I'm going to call it a 3050 load when you're measuring 3 feet from the muzzle. So it's close to 3,100 feet per second, but I should probably update that note there. So other than that, we can throw it together. We can see here it's a very good looking bullet, the Hornady ELD-X. has been a consistent performer across the industry since it was released, and it's offered in 30 caliber in a number of different grain weights. You've got everything down to what would be great for the 308 Winchester, all the way up through the heaviest, around 220 grains, I believe, is the heaviest you can get it in the 308 diameter, and that would be perfect for things like 300 PRC, 300 Grum, 300 Norma, etc. But the 200 to 212 is pretty damn good for your 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC, 300 Norma, 300 Grum for just general hunting purposes. Perfectly capable of taking big whitetails up close and at distance, as well as the same for muleys, black bear, even grizzly bear, and of course big elk. Just have to know your shot placement and your rifle and how it shoots this. But being able to shoot a very nice hunting load into less than a half-inch group is exceptional, and definitely going to help you out. So let's throw a couple of these together and take a look. Now, yes, I am loading this on a Hornady progressive press, but it's what I've got set up, and it actually works well. So you can load nice precision hunting cartridges on this press, but the longer ones you do have to fiddle with to get them to feed upright. We're going to go ahead and seat this guy here. Then you do have to lift your guide to free it up. And boom, there we go. Absolutely beautiful, ready to go hunting cartridge. Well, now that we've got some assembled here, we're going to go out to the range and take a few shots. So let's get right into it. Well, as we discussed at the reloading bench, here we are, another day and another target. We're sitting at 107 yards. I could put myself on the exact 100-yard line, but it really won't matter. That 7-yard distance is just not going to make up too much of a difference, especially when you're shooting a 300 PRC, right? So what are we going to do? Well, as I said at the bench, we're going to shoot at a couple different magnifications to confirm whether I need to re-zero the gun at a medium or moderate magnification, such as 12 power or 14 power, so that no matter where I dial up or down, I'm always within a specific range. That's part of the thing about second focal plane scopes. Really good ones will have minimal variation. Not so good ones will, well, they'll vary quite a bit as you increase or decrease the power dependent upon your magnification. This is a pretty decent scope. It comes right in at about the $300 to $400 mark, just depending upon where you source it. I really love the Reticle. If it was first focal plane, I think it'd be unbelievably exceptional. But I am blabbing on. So we are going to start with knowing that this was confirmed zero at 24 power at 100 yards off of the bench with a different bipod setup. I have set the rifle up as I'm going to hunt with it in the field this season. So we are going to not only be checking what the variance is with our different magnification levels, but we are also going to be looking at what it does in the field. Due to recoil control being different on the bench from what you will typically see offhand and in the field, it may require some minor adjustment, and that can become more critical at further ranges. Within 250 yards, pretty much not, but depending upon your load and your rifle, it could make a huge difference out past that distance. The 300 PRC in this load, it really shouldn't, but I want to make sure that everything with my gear is squared away, so the only variable is me come the time to pull the trigger. So we are going to just extend our legs here. And that feels pretty comfortable. We are going to start at 6 power and go from there. We will start at 6, go to 12, then 18, and then 24, and see at 107 yards what the difference may be. Loading it up with the magazine that came with the rifle, which is a accurate mag made in the US. I also have an MDT mag made in Canada, and both seem to be very, very good. Loss. Okay, round in the chamber. We're at 6 power. We're set at the proper focal plane. I'm going to bear into the optic, or into the bipod, and load it and try and get the very best shot I can. Hopefully my luscious locks here won't get in my line of sight. A little bit of crosswind, probably about 8 to 10 miles an hour right now. Shouldn't make a difference at this distance. Okay, looks to be right on. Left, right was a little bit of wobble for me. Excellent, good primer signs. I love the smell of that LRT. Just a really nice smelling powder when it burns. So we're going to turn up now to 12 power magnification. Let's see what happens. That one was slightly high. I think that was me on the wobble. 18 power now. 24 power. And I felt it push a little bit low as the shot broke, so that made sense. Let's head on down range and take a look at the point of impacts. Looks like we don't have to worry about where we're zeroed. All right, so first impact at 6 power, slightly right, but still pretty well centered, and about 2 inches low at 107 yards, which means at 100 and less, it's going to mean even less. 12 power right here, 18 power right here. I definitely have a favorite right. It might be the way that I'm controlling the recoil of the rifle off of that bipod. And then 24 power right here. I know it's zeroed. I can feel the shot pull low and right. So I'm pretty confident. I mean, at 4 different powers, shooting off a bipod at 107 yards, I'm definitely in a sitting position. I'm definitely going to land in the vital zone of a deer. And heck, I mean, if I was feeling froggy enough, I definitely could pop a doe in the noggin if I were to so choose. So that's pretty awesome. Accuracy is definitely there. Really, we're not going to see too much variance with being scoped or sighted in at 24 power. So I can leave it be and simply magnify it to the lighting conditions or my personal desires for being able to see the animal. And at 107 yards and less, it's definitely going to land in the vital zone. We know that. Next thing to do, since we have these marked up, is going to be to step back a little ways. I'm going to back up to an unknown distance, and then we're going to take a couple offhand shots. Well, not offhand, but off the bipod. We will range find them when we set up, but they will be unknown. I'm just going to pick 3 different spots, and we are going to see what actual drop or variance at those ranges. If they end up all landing within this circle or all landing within 4 inches of each other, depending upon how my shooting does and having this point of aim, we'll go from there. And also I'm going to just magnify to my heart's content. I won't set it at 24. I will just set it at whatever. Again, we're just testing to make sure that our sighting is good, our zeroing is good, and that we have variances that are accountable but not enough to make a big difference at the ranges I'm most likely to shoot at deer this season. So let's get right into shooting again. All right, so we found a spot here that'll work, shooting through a little bit of grass at 200 yards. And we'll probably have to move around a little bit just to accommodate for vegetation, but that's what you get when you practice just like it is while hunting. So you don't always get a perfect line of sight, and there's sometimes things in the way that you have to try and thread the needle on if you want to make the shot where you're sitting. All right. See if we can thread the needle here through some grass and make a hit. Can't really tell where I hit. But we will check it out in just a second. All right, so that shot felt pretty dang good, and I did thread the needle. And so if it hit stuff and deviated, it's kind of hard to tell how much it did. But we are about 1, 2, 3.5, 3.75 inches low, maybe getting close to 4 inches there. Low from point of aim at 12 power, and I forgot to mention that is at 200 yards. We are a little bit low at 107 yards, so at 200 yards, laser range verified here with the Leupold RX 1600i, we're right in the money. And this is about the size of a good sized deer's heart, you know, as far as the size of this circle. So if I'm holding at the point of the shoulder, I'm going to center punch the shoulder on even a small doe and just wreck the vitals. There is no chance that that deer is going to make it there at 200 yards. That's going to knock them down. So let's see if we can get a little bit farther. I'm going to see if I can back myself up to 250/300, probably put the scope on 18 or 20 power, and see if I can watch my wobble enough to put another round pretty close. I might hold just a touch high just to see if I can slip it back inside the circle. But so far, feeling pretty dang confident. We're going to kill some deer with this, so long as my trigger finger comes straight back and I'm not doing anything wacky. The rifle and loads seem to be working just fine. And this scope, not a bad option for the price point. But there's definitely better optics out there, especially for a rifle setup like this. All right, let's take another shot. All right, so since we got way too much prairie grass down low, I can't utilize the bipod. So we are going to shoot off the truck bed here. This could be a deer stand, could be a tree stand, etc. But we're gonna just utilize this as our rest and to get ourselves above the above the grass. But it is a little bit of an awkward position, so we'll see what it does. Now I'm going to set the scope for about 20 power. Now at 300 yards with a 100 yard zero, this load should be 2.91, 2.94 MOA drop. So that equates in inches to approximately 9.5 to 9 3/4 inches, according to the Hornady 4DOF calculator. What I am going to do is I am going to hold about 3 MOA high, because at 20 power, I'm probably going to be a little bit low compared to my 24 power zero. So I don't want to slip out of my 10-inch circle, my theoretical 10-inch circle for the vital zone of a deer. So let's see if I can get close. I don't see any holes. That are shot felt pretty good. Definitely controlled the recoil differently. So we'll see how much of a difference that made. Let's run down to the target and check her out. All right, so as I approached, I didn't see any errant flyers, and I was like, that's good. And I was thinking about my first shot and how much I let the gun come back and how I was holding it. I don't think the over-the-scope hold was bad. I just didn't pin the rifle enough. So as it recoiled, I definitely felt the reticle dip, but I couldn't tell. But now the proof is in the pudding when I come to the target board. And right here, this is definitely our first shot. So there we go. Now our second shot, had the rifle solid, had my first hold right here so that I was a total of about 10 inches up, right? And boom, we landed just 2 inches low. And that could be me, that could be the actual flight characteristics on this particular day in November. And there we go. I landed in our little circle here, which is definitely going to knock a deer down. So at 305 yards, we've got our dope. And we know what to do. So I'm going to hold a little bit high out past 150 yards if I'm not up to 18, 20, 24 power on the scope. And then out to 300. So I'm going to trust my holdovers. And if I'm not at 24 power, I'm going to give it a little bit extra. So kind of thinking through it, but if you're shooting at a longer range, ideally you're probably giving yourself enough time to make those calculations in your head or know your holdovers, etc. But really past, unless it's dying light, like right now, we're getting towards sunset, past 300 yards, I'm probably going to set it at 20 or 24 power and give it the ballistic hold that it has to have. So I'm happy with my 100-yard zero. I'm happy with my performance here today. Every shot except this guy felt very consistent. I'm very happy with it, and I am very excited to try out this load as well as my 44 Magnum load out of the Henry carbine and Anaconda on some deer in just a week's time. So the Bergara B-14 HMR and 300 PRC is ready for deer season here in Nebraska. Well guys, I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. I know I enjoyed making it, and I'm pretty happy with how I shot today. It's always good to be confident in your equipment, and I'm very much ready with the Bergara and 300 PRC. So we'll see how it works out come deer season in just a short amount of time, and we will do more work with this cartridge and this rifle sometime in the future. I'll take you along on my adventures, and maybe you'll enjoy them as much as I do. As always, guys, if you want to know more or you want to continue to watch whatever we're doing here at American Arms Channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to stay up to date. As always, God bless, keep your powder dry. I'll see you in the next video.